Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the history, the poetry, and the rich theology of an absolutely classic hymn, Wonderful Peace. We're going to unpack not just its incredibly moving lyrics, but the fascinating story behind how they were written and the profound biblical truths that anchor them. If you've ever found yourself craving a real sense of calm in a chaotic world, well, you are in the exact right place.
Okay, let's dive into this because I want to start with a question that honestly feels incredibly relevant today, even though it was penned over a century ago. Think about your own life and this idea of marching down the rough pathway of time. As the years pass by, it frequently gets rough, doesn't it? We face illness, disappointment, the loss of loved ones, profound grief. It can be an absolutely exhausting march.
That powerful imagery actually comes from the fifth stanza of our hymn. Listen to this. Our soul, are you here without comfort and rest, marching down the rough pathway of time? Make Jesus your friend ere the shadows grow dark. Oh, accept this sweet peace so sublime. You see, this isn't just nice flowery poetry. It's a complete validation of our human experience. It acknowledges exactly how desperately we search for stability and comfort when the shadows in our lives inevitably start to grow dark.
Section 1. An accidental masterpiece, the story behind the hymn. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this profoundly comforting piece of poetry was almost lost to history before it even began. It's wild. To understand the depth of these words, we really have to look at the serendipitous story of exactly how they came into existence.
So, the story takes us back to August of 1889 at a camp meeting near West Bend, Wisconsin. Picture a minister named Warren D. Cornell sitting alone in a tent deep in introspection. He starts writing down the thoughts busying his mind, thoughts about a profound peace he had found. But then, as he sinks back into his ruminations, he stands up, unwittingly drops the paper with these incredible verses right there on the dirt floor of the tent, and just walks out. Luckily for us, an hour or two later, a musician named William G. Cooper walks into that exact same tent. He spots the paper on the ground, picks it up, reads it, and is utterly fascinated. The verses resonated so deeply with his own thoughts that he sat right down, filled in the missing pieces to complete the poem, moved over to the organ, and composed the beautiful melody that we still sing to this day.
The man who accidentally dropped that paper, Warren D. Cornell, lived a truly fascinating and varied life. Born in 1858, he trained as a school teacher and was already teaching in the Dallas Public Schools by the time he was 19. He later moved to Wisconsin, where he became an eloquent preacher, a poet, and eventually a touring lecturer deeply involved in social issues. But of all the amazing things he accomplished, this accidental masterpiece remained the closest to his heart. In fact, these words were so precious to him that when he passed away in 1936, the opening lines of Wonderful Peace were engraved right on his tombstone in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Section 2, Biblical Roots of Peace, exploring Isaiah and John. To truly appreciate the lyrics Cornell left on that tent floor, we have to understand where his inspiration actually came from. We need to shift our focus to the theological foundation of the hymn by deconstructing the specific biblical texts that inspired it.
A core inspiration here is Isaiah 26:3, which says, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee." Now, the original Hebrew here is fascinating. The phrase translated as perfect peace is literally peace, peace. That repetition denotes an absolute undisturbed completeness. And look at that phrase, stayed mind. It literally means a mind that is supported by God. Picture a weak, exhausted person leaning all of their weight entirely onto a strong staff. True stability doesn't come from our own strength, right? It comes from leaning completely on the unchanging Creator, the Rock of Ages.
So the crucial point is understanding the fundamental difference between the peace the world offers and the peace Christ offers, as promised in John 14:27. The world's peace is highly circumstantial. It relies on empty, flattering greetings, temporary wealth, or fleeing into sharp distractions just to numb the pain. It's essentially a thin layer of turf over a boiling volcano. Christ's peace, on the other hand, is completely different. It actually meets the deep wants of the soul, it silences the heavy alarms of a guilty conscience, and it remains fixed and sure even when external circumstances are completely falling apart.
Section 3. A poetic lyrical journey, stanza by stanza analysis. With that solid biblical foundation in place, let's transition into a text-painting analysis of the hymn itself. I want you to see exactly how Cornell and Cooper used incredibly vivid sensory imagery to describe this profound biblical piece.
The very first stanza sets the stage perfectly. Far away in the depths of my spirit tonight rolls a melody sweeter than psalm. Notice what they're doing here.
They're framing peace not simply as the absence of trouble. Instead, it is an active, unceasing heavenly melody. It's described as an infinite calm that continuously rolls through the very depths of the believer's spirit, almost like a wave from above.
Moving right along to the second stanza, the imagery shifts from a melody to a hidden vault. What a treasure I have in this wonderful peace, buried deep in the heart of my soul. It's depicted as a deeply buried treasure that is fundamentally secure. The beautiful promise here is that this peace is so solidly guarded that absolutely no earthly power can mine it away. It remains completely safe while the years of eternity roll on.
Now, the third stanza uses a phrase that we really need to unpack carefully: resting sweetly in Jesus' control. In our modern world, the word control often carries a pretty negative connotation, doesn't it? We associate it with rigid domination, restriction, or a loss of freedom. But we have to explicitly redefine it in this context. Here, it conveys willingly placing oneself under Christ's caring, loving, and protective authority. It's not about being dominated at all. It's about entrusting your life to a completely capable and loving guide.
And look at the logical result of that surrender outlined in the rest of the stanza. When you submit to that loving control, you aren't constrained. You are resting sweetly. The result is constant, day and night protection, where you are kept from all danger. And rather than being emptied out or restricted, the soul is completely flooded with divine glory. The surrender is literally exactly what creates the security.
Section 4. The Author of Peace, a Lasting Comfort. Let's move to and see how this builds as we zoom out for our conclusion. We've looked at the history, the biblical backing, and the poetic imagery. Now let's synthesize the hymn's ultimate message and what it means for how we actually live our lives today.
Stanzas 4 and 5 beautifully bridge the gap between our current reality and our future hope. We transition from the earthly struggle, that rough pathway of time we talked about earlier, to the anticipation of the heavenly kingdom. It speaks of rising to that city of peace where the ransomed sing, and most importantly, where we finally come face to face with the true author of peace.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core truth we discussed earlier from John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. True peace is never found in perfectly managing your circumstances or somehow avoiding all hardship. True peace relies solely on the presence of the author of peace. As long as he is with you in the boat, the storm outside simply cannot destroy the calm inside. Which brings us to our final thought. How will you navigate the shadows on your own rough pathway of time? The hymn extends a gentle but very urgent challenge to all of us. Make Jesus your friend before the shadows grow dark. Don't wait until the storm is raging to look for an anchor. I challenge you today to reflect on your own spiritual journey, to stop relying on the temporary, fleeting comforts of the world, and to accept this sweet, sublime peace for yourself. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I truly hope this deep dive leaves you with a wonderful peace.